What's cracking, Hope Nation? It's your friendly neighborhood, Kevin Hines, and I couldn't be more thrilled today to sit down with a truly amazing duo, the clinically related Aleksei Archer and Dr. Marlon Rollins, two of the greatest mental health advocates on the face of the universe, dare I say, in the galaxy. And they are suicide prevention. Yes, come on. They're suicide prevention phenoms, powerhouses, and they are movements unto themselves. Let's get right into it. We have a lot to talk about today, and we're going to be talking about something really important, and this is what to do when someone talks about before they attempt, during a potential suicidal ideation, or after someone passes away or dies by suicide. As we don't say committed suicide, that term needs to be relegated and left in the past. When someone passes away this way, you say died by suicide or died from depression, just like anyone would die of any other organ disease. So let's start with Aleksei Archer. Aleksei, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Kevin.
Aleksei, we got the gift of meeting each other some years back and connecting and becoming friends, just like Marlon and I did as well. And you have a passionate, incredible, and determined mission to help people mourn the grief of a very serious kind of loss when someone takes their life. And you've lost your father to suicide, and you've lost other people to suicide. I'd like to talk to you about how that impacted your growth as a young woman.
Yeah, I lost my father, Jeremy, to suicide April 26th, 2017. Obviously, it was a very devastating loss. We were really, really close. I was always a daddy's girl, and I felt for a long time that I had completely lost that. It felt like he had been my security blanket my whole life. And to answer your question about growth, I realized that I had to become my own security blanket. And I love to sort of express that the love story that is the grieving pathway is about falling deeper in love with ourselves. And so now I've rediscovered not only a deeper connection with myself, but also I have a new relationship with Jeremy, and he's still very much a part of my work.
Your new relationship is that he's part of your work, and he's part of what helps you help heal other people, which is you talk a lot about finding the gift in the curse you've experienced. And I want to know, how do you, Aleksei, help the people in your Mourning Glory Club find the gift?
There's many different ways. Of course, being a part of a community and knowing that other people have gone through a similar experience and rediscovering the love of that new family, a family that you wouldn't really have normally otherwise had. I mean, it's the club that nobody wants to be a part of, but if you're going to be a part of it, you may as well get together with a bunch of other really great suicide loss survivors, because the community is actually quite amazing. When somebody goes through such an intense loss and they've made the choice now to do the work, it really brings together a really special kind of a person.
And just for people who don't know, because there's people out there that aren't familiar, what is the Mourning Glory Club, and how can it help people in the pain you've experienced personally?
Mourning Glory Club is a 360-degree resource for suicide loss survivors. I've really wanted to create a space and a place that was just for survivorship. Unfortunately, as you know, suicide rates continue to go up, and for every suicide, there's, at the very minimum, that 135 people that are affected. And so 50,000 Americans are dying by suicide per year. That's making 1,000 new suicide loss survivors every year. And I felt that it was really important to have a space and a place that was designated for us. So we offer group therapy, one-on-one coaching. We're working on a video program. Now we have this podcast, Clinically Related, which is the clinical version of the more comedic version of our show called Two Girls, One Grief. So really providing a lot of free information, also one-on-ones that get a little bit more deeper into the work. And then Dr. Marlon and I are also doing a free monthly webinar every month. So really trying to teach people that there is joy after loss, and all the tips and tricks that we learned over many, many years, and sort of supersizing that and making the grieving pathway go much faster.
Incredible work you're doing. It's changing lives. It's helping people heal. It's giving people a sense of closure and peace. Dr. Rollins, you've also become a dear friend of mine, and you guys have connected on a very deep level, a bond that is so raw and frankly, in the past, so filled with pain. But you're doing something to give back, not just to your friends and family, but to society at large, which is really a heroic and commendable act. And you lost your sister, Doc, and it broke your heart. If you could tell us more about who she was and what she meant to you and why you and then Aleksei are doing this work. Why does it matter so much to you? We understand that you had the loss and you moved from the loss to this great work, but why are you both so impassioned to change lives all over the world? We'll start with you, Doctor.
Yeah, no, thank you, Kevin, for having us again. I feel like I'm a part of this Avengers team. Let me just tell you that, because I know you're out there spreading a message of hope for people who are in pain. And so thank you for all that you do. And also thank you for introducing us together just a few years ago. And for me, it was recognizing that this is work that you don't do by yourself. Okay, we need to have a community. You need to have alliances with people to spread a greater message. You need to have an Avenger team with everyone with their special superpower to make a change. And the reason that we're called to action, as you know, is suicide rates have keep going up, and we're losing people. And we want to get in front of that. I am still on a mission of seeing those numbers come down, with the second leading cause of death in this country as suicide. And we've got to do more of, like, somebody dying in this country every 10 minutes by suicide. So, aligning with Aleksei, I connected with her because she has embodied kind of a representation of my sister. My sister looks a lot like her. They're the same height. When she left this earth was about the same age that I met Aleksei, ironically. And so talking with her as a fellow law survivor, I recognize this kind of kinship of spirit and common mission to say, I have a sister who has a mission to help people heal. And so that's why we're joining together to do Clinically Related, and to have you as a host here today with us, because you were the guy that said, hey, sitting across the table when you were releasing the Death Bridge, if we were talking about it. So here we are, and elevating the mission further, because I can say people are hurting a lot more. And what started me on this journey, I'm a clinician. I have a doctorate in psychology. I'm a licensed therapist. And for many, many years, I worked in schools. I worked in hospital settings. And my job was to, quote unquote, prevent suicide or help people in the emergency room in hospitals who were struggling at a pivotal point. I was a crisis director for a number of years. And as a director of that department, helping other therapists take people at that point of crisis and helping them make that shift to hope out of their pain. Right? We were at that pivotal point. We were the front door of a psychiatric hospital, or the front door to the next level of care, the therapist trying to connect them to living again. And I lost my sister, Amber Rose Rollins, and on December 31st, 2013. In fact, she was admitted to the hospital that I was running 6 months prior. And my sister, most importantly, she was a nurse. She was someone who was about taking care of the elderly and helping people heal with dignity and taking care of families. And we always believed that we would work together, and I'd be the therapist and she was going to be the nurse. And at the time of her death, I grew up in Indiana and was working there in Indianapolis, Indiana. I realized that this was a call for action, because in that position as a director, I realized how important leadership was, and that leaders in these healthcare communities and healthcare providers made the difference of what was important. And after my sister died, I picked up the pain of her death and launched myself out to California and said, I'm going to figure out how to be the CEO or COO or somebody in charge that cares enough to make changes in these institutions, because I didn't feel like healthcare, psychiatric hospitals, rehab centers were really paying attention to something when people were really in pain, right? Were we doing enough? And so our staff weren't trained well. So I came out to California and worked in some of the largest psychiatric hospitals, some of the largest addiction providers up and down the state of California, up from everything from Sacramento to the Bay to in Los Angeles to Orange County, and leading teams. I would come here and people were not trained on suicide prevention. They didn't know what to do. And I realized I started doing the delicate work of what do you do for the intervention? Because it's a scary thing when someone says, I don't want to live anymore. And what do you do at that point? It's scary for the doctor. It's scary for the staff. It's scary for just a family member to
patient.
hear that, right? And say, now what do I do? How do I help? And so that's been my personal mission. And now I work and I do a program called Core Power, which is helping other executives, training them to create systems, right, that strengthen them as leaders and strengthen the hospitals. Because as I was doing all this work, I realized I hadn't healed myself enough as an individual, as a brother. My sister was 2 years older than me, and I joined Mourning Glory to do more healing work, right, as a lost survivor so that I could show up as a better leader. And now that's been kind of the next level for this mission here. So
Yeah, I invited Dr. Marlon to come just as a client. I'm like, you're doing so much work for everybody else. Just come and have a safe space to express yourself. And over not too much time, he started co-facilitating with me. And I was like, you know what, this is great too. And then we really realized our sibling-like connection. We were like, oh my God, we're helping people together. And that was the dream that
Yeah.
he had with Amber. So
Yeah.
it's like such an honor to, if in any way I can, fill her shoes.
Yeah, and so it's been lovely because she said to me, hey, she did the sister move. Hey, are you okay? Come to group, right? She's like, you don't have to be Dr. Marlins. You don't have to be therapist. You're struggling too. You tell your story. So she gave me space, and I'm grateful for that.
And I always wanted to build something with somebody else. I don't like working in a vacuum. So I was like happy to welcome the help also.
And Aleksei, on that note, you I have to say this, you see the good in people and you see the light in them. And you also, you're a great bridge and a great connector of people. And you see how some people like Dr. Marlon Rollins can give back in a major way, and you blossom an opportunity for things like that. You're very forward thinking and you do things differently. And you're always rocking the neon green, and you've got the neon green mobile unit or whatever it's called, and you're flying down the road.
The golf cart,
the mobile unit. What am I talking about? The golf cart, and you entertain in a way that is engaging and intuitive and empowering. And I think Dr. Marlon Rollins sees that. And Doc, on your end, you are a phenom in the clinical world, and you have given so much of your time, energy, and effort to changing lives and to changing systems, which is incredible. So the two of you coming together as the sibling duo of success for mental health and for suicide prevention is a gift to the world that the rest of the world needs to know. On that note, Doc, I got to ask you.
Kevin, we would not be here without you.
Yeah. Come on. You're a part of this thing. Come on.
Yeah, you're trapped with us forever now.
That's a deal. I'm ready. Let's go. What I want to
You are our Professor X, sir.
Yeah.
I got the ball thing going for me. So I have to ask you, Doc, you mentioned something earlier about where people go and what do they do when someone they love passes on this way. Can you both separately answer that? Besides going to Mourning Glory and signing up and getting involved, what do they do in the immediate of the loss so they don't spiral downward and make terrible decisions themselves?
No, this is such an important question. And we've been having a dialogue on Clinically Related about this very thing. Like, what do you do in the middle of the blame and the hurt of losing someone to suicide? So the first thing is knowledge that it's painful. And I want to tell people right away that if you've lost someone to suicide, it's not your fault.
Yes.
It's like the number one thing is you begin to blame yourself, and that unanswerable question of why, and there is no good why, but we start to turn it in on ourselves.
And sometimes people even turn it on their loved ones.
Yeah.
And that is also not healthy.
Yeah.
Because even the person as the blamer, you're feeling out of control. And then it just becomes this really sad blame game. And I think it is a piece of why it's considered complex grief, because there's this idea that there's choice involved. And then if you're at all related to that person, then it's like you're all of a sudden complicit in like a murder, but then the murderer is the person themselves. So it just becomes very confusing and very complicated. And so, yeah, remembering that it is not your fault is such a critical piece.
Yeah. It's as though something has happened to one of the most important people in our lives, and all we want is justice.
Right.
Right.
And how do you get it?
Yeah. And so who's at fault? We blame, we get angry, we attack. And so knowing that feeling, that anger is not supposed to be turned outward to other people. It's not intended to be turned to us. It's a time to pause, reflect, to love, to reconnect with oneself, find community, as you can, safe people you can talk to.
The other thing I'll touch upon too is not succumbing to what I have been referring to as propaganda, that there's this idea that you'll never heal. Your life will never be good again. You will always feel sad. And that it's almost like this trophy that is spoken about as if you should never have a happy and fulfilled life again after a suicide loss. And we just don't subscribe to it. And it's something that I am very energized about right now. And I think that that is part of what's so important about us being so upfront and so forward with our stories and talking about what it looks like to find joy again and what it looks like to be a healed person, even in the wake of tragic loss.
You're giving, both of you are giving a space where there has been a massive void in society, and where people detract away from a problem and a societal norm, because suicides, sadly, are normal. They happen all around the world every single day, like you said, Doc, every 10 minutes. So let's stop pretending that this is a unicorn and start calling it what it is. It's normalized. It happens. Let's get people to recognize that suicide is not the answer. It's the problem, that they're beautiful just as they are, that they're never meant to die by their hands, and that they're supposed to be here until their natural end, to find a purpose in their life beyond the pain they're experiencing in the moment. And to the people that are blaming themselves and blaming others, your loved one didn't die because of you. They didn't die in spite of you. They died because of a lethal emotional pain that had nothing to do with you. Take that weight of that pain and brush it off your shoulders. That's too much weight for anyone to carry. It'll kill you. And so I think in that vein, you two are doing something that is, I'm going to say it, a true blessing to the people who you serve. And I really hope that Mourning Glory and your webinars and your programs become synonymous with mental health care and suicide prevention and postvention in a multi-international way that sparks hope and healing in people who believe they can never be free from that pain of the loss. Because when you spark that emotion in people to realize that they can have a future, you're saving lineages. And that is something that is fucking special.
I mean, you're literally speaking my language. I don't think about my own demise often, but I think, oh man, if I were to all of a sudden pass away right in this moment, no, I have to set up Mourning Glory to help generations of suicide loss survivors to come, and us making this type of content that is palatable, hopefully somewhat entertaining, but also information dense, so that people can see that there is hope and that there is healing. And so we've been working really hard at creating these programs so that people can heal and get better. And also they can see and believe, and they see it in you too, that you can get better.
Right.
Yeah. And that healing is not linear. It's going to be different for every person. I just got connected to and has become, a new friend to Blake Mykowski, who created Tom's Shoes. And he had this experience where he created Tom's Shoes, exited the company, sold the company, lots of money came his way, but his soul was not happy. And he was crushed by the lack of the daily grind of building that company and the lack of people in his circle that he could turn to about his depression, and then his turn to suicidal ideation, and then his near attempt or his attempts. And he's got kids and a wife, and he found his way back through connection and brotherhood with other young men who are doing similar works, and he found hope again. And so I guess my next question for you on that line of thinking is, when you see young men and young women who, whether they're entrepreneurially successful or they are just getting along in their journey of life, but they are crushed and they become suicidal, my next question to both of you is, how do you reach someone like that and let them know that tomorrow's another day and it can get better with hard work?
Well, I'll let Dr. Marlon answer the how do you get across to them and how do you reach them? But I have heard his story before, and it really touched me because I have a lot of conversations with people who have grieved, who haven't done the work, who are doing the work, who have found themselves being distracted away or purposefully not focusing in on themselves because they're so focused on work. And we live in a culture that's all about success and all about money and not necessarily taking the time to work on our self-awareness and our self-love. So when I heard his story, I actually wasn't that surprised because the number one most common thing I hear people telling me who haven't grieved is that they busied themselves. Busying ourselves is a cancer in our culture, and it leads to brain pain. So I'll let you handle the next part of that.
No, and it's such an important thing to highlight these stories of people transforming their pain into purpose. And Kevin, you're embodying that. So again, thank you for what you're doing because you didn't have to stand up and tell your story.
You didn't. I'm so proud of you.
And it takes a tremendous amount of courage, and you're changing the world by doing so. And so I want to point you out as a role model too, because I know you give shots and love out to a lot of people. But if you are embodying taking pain and turning it into purpose, and the same question, you are an example of what that answer is that sometimes in life, and I'll quote like Dr. Maya Angelou, she inspires me. Like sometimes she wrote, it's necessary that you fail. It's necessary that you are crushed so that you can rise again and find out who you really are, right? And what you're capable of. Growth is not linear, as you said. Mm-hmm. Healing is not linear. There's one and the same. Life is not linear. It is made for ups and downs. So it is necessary in life that you go through adversity. But what's important is how you rebound forward. And so, I wrote a book called Resilience Between Pain and Purpose. And the focus was the in-between, the point of pain and getting into the purpose. It's the in-between. So if you can understand that the pain is necessary, like I can't sit on this chair without the pain. You can't sit in that chair without the pain. You can't sit there without the pain. It was necessary for you to be transformed, to become and walk fully into your purpose on this planet while you have it. So for any young person who is hurt and has felt left down, has had failure, the only way that we truly find out who we are, the only way that we really grow is when we go through adversity, pain, hurt, and we feel crushed. It is then we become that phoenix and we reemerge with greater purpose, and our superpower just excels. So do not fall for the thought that because you failed, that your life is over. That is just the beginning. All you have to do is reach out and know that your life is still valuable, even if it doesn't feel like it in that moment. It's just a little glimmer of hope. So learning that, knowing that, believing that your life is so valuable, so unique, don't put it out, lean into it. This is now your opportunity to go even higher.
I'll say, every time you fail, you're failing upwards because it's all leading. You learn so much every time. And then you do it again, and you do it again, and every time it gets better.
Another perspective, thank you for both of you for that. Another perspective is, and this is, I heard this a long time ago and I really liked it. There are no such things as failures. They're just setups to something greater. And I think that's another way to look at it. But I think this reminds me very much of the house of David in the Bible, David and Goliath. You've got David, this meager, small, tiny man who is fighting society everywhere he goes, and everybody looks down on him because he's a bastard child of his father, and he's not good enough because he's not a full son, and he questions everything he does, but he's approached by the lion, the bear, that are attacking him and his flock. And instead of cowering away, he fights them with a slingshot and he slays the lion and the bear, but nobody believes him. And then he goes forward and he's met with Goliath, this fallen angel, which they called gods on earth, that the wings were clipped and they were sent back down to earth, but they were these huge mountains of men, and they took on all the soldiers and the warriors, and they slayed them. But here comes David looking Goliath in the eyes and going, I'm not going to let you make me afraid of what I can overcome. And I look at Goliath like suicidal ideations because I still have them. That's my Goliath. My Goliath is these thoughts and these feelings of not being enough, not knowing enough, not having enough, and thinking that I should leave this earth of my own doing, self-murder, because I'm not valued enough. And I look at Goliath and I go, no, I'm like David. I'm going to slay you every time. I'm never going to die by my hands. I'm never going to attempt again. And I haven't in 25 years living with thousands of suicidal ideations. I've never attempted again, because every time I get to that point, I look in the mirror and I say, my thoughts don't have to become my actions. They can simply be my thoughts. They don't have to define, own, and rule what I do next. If they're dangerous to myself or others, thus I never have to attempt in the first place. And the second thing I do every time is I turn to anyone willing to listen. And I promise you, my good friends, if I was suicidal in this moment, which I'm not, I would look to you both through this lens and I would tell you, and what would you do?
Yeah, absolutely would help you.
Of
You would
course.
help me because you're my friends and you love me and I love you too. And anything you need from me, I will be there, and vice versa. And so when you're in this depth of pain and emotion and struggle, you have to fight to say something loud and vocally and visibly until one person is willing to answer the call. That's a tall order for someone who's in that kind of pain, but I'm living proof that it's possible and plausible with hard work, because nothing good ever came without it.
Well, I really admire the fact that you are so open about still having suicidal ideation. And what we're all doing here is pretty radical. People aren't supposed to talk about this. And the stigma, aka the prejudice associated with brain pain, and even for me as a person who is just talking about my father and the residual of that and how it's affected me in my personal life, in my dating life, in even working. I was just recently found out that I was not hired on a job because I'm so public about suicide loss. And for us to be sitting here having these conversations despite the environment, despite the atmosphere, I'm very excited to be in this room because we are all so badass.
And you know what? Shame on the people that didn't hire you for the job, for your lived experience, because they're missing out, because you could be teaching those people in that room or those rooms lessons they could never fathom anywhere else. And they're missing out. And it's a tragedy that they're doing that to you. But you'll move forward, you'll move on, and you'll find better jobs with people that want you in the room. And that's the kind of place you need to be in. Dr. Marlon Rollins, I want to know, and I actually want to ask you both this question. If you could, and maybe you've already done this, but I want to hear from you. If you could dedicate a personal message that would reach through the cosmos and reach up to heaven and reach your sister, Doc, and your father, Aleksei, either one of you start, what is your message to them, having them been gone this long? And secondarily, what does that message mean to you? And take your time.
I think the first thing that I would say to my sister, the message that came up to my heart was, you didn't have to leave. It wasn't necessary for you to go. The world would be a better place if you were here. You didn't have to step into eternity and leave us. You left us all in pain. You left your daughter in pain. But I want you to know that I'm carrying on, and I'm brave enough and bold enough to continue to step forward and love and complete the work that you weren't able to complete. And I know that you're proud of me too. And I want to thank you for being a big sister for me. And even though that you're not here today, your life was still a gift to me. And I feel your presence. I feel your call. Thank you for bringing Kevin into my life. Thank you for bringing Aleksei into my life to give me another platform to speak louder, because I know ultimately in your regret, you want to see people healed. And I want you to know that I love you. And your life always mattered, even when it didn't feel like that we were enough. But I know that's true today, that I am. And I want others to know how important their life is and that they are loved, even in their darkest of times. Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Thank you, brother.
What would I say? You know, it's funny saying the word dad or daddy. It just is so foreign now. You know, it's been so long since I've said those words, but I would say, Daddy, thank you for being such an incredible father and for teaching me what healthy male attention is, though I've struggled at times with always finding healthy connections. I can return back to the little girl that felt cared for, that felt seen, that felt loved unconditionally. And I know that even though you were in a lot of pain and it felt like at times that you chose to leave me and that left me feeling like maybe I wasn't good enough, I know now that that was the biggest lie I could have ever told myself. And I honor you by loving myself the way that you loved me when I was a little baby. Thank you for putting on the training wheels. And then when I was little, my dad took the training wheels off my bicycle and sent me down the hill. So it's kind of a funny euphemism for teaching me how to ride a bicycle, the tough way. So I love you so much.
Now you can ride a unicycle too.
Exactly. Now I know how to unicycle also.
Oh, you guys, this has been an incredible conversation. And just so you know, from the depth of my heart, and Margaret's, she's not here, but she feels this way too. We love you both unconditionally. We see you both in all you're doing. We appreciate you deeply. And as friends and kind of semi-family members, we are grateful for our kinship. To everyone watching, listening, viewing, and subscribing, and to everyone who ever finds this piece of new media, whatever you're going through, whatever the depth of your darkest hours, keep going, keep fighting, keep moving forward. I don't think you can move on from a suicide. I don't believe that. I don't believe anyone can move on from a suicide. I believe you look to the living and you find a way to move forward through the pain one day at a time. But like Aleksei said, I do think you can find healing through that pain, but you have to go through it to get there to the other side. Friends, everyone going through hardship right now, it's a tough world we live in. If nobody else says it today, we love you and we want you to stay. Be here tomorrow. We need you. This has been an episode of the HINESIGHTS Podcast and an episode of Clinically Related. Check out what Aleksei and Dr. Rollins are doing with Clinically Related and the Mourning Glory Club. Find them on all social media platforms. Find Aleksei at 2 Girls, 1 Grief. All of those platforms are imperative to changing the conversation about suicide, postvention, and prevention, and finding hope and healing again. Where do they find you guys online, and how do they reach you?
I'm at Aleksei Archer, Aleksei Archer. I'm pretty easy to find on the internet, so I'm on literally every single social platform that there is.
Very true. You can find me, again, at Dr. Marlon Rollins. That's DrMarlonRollins, and Dr. Rollins, MarlonRollins.com.
Yeah.
And, check out my new book, Resilience Between Pain and Purpose, featuring the growth codes. I give you the recipe of how to get through it to the other side. That's the message. Let's get to the other side of the pain and do something phenomenal, because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah. And if you guys want to check out a group meeting or come to our free webinar, you can go to mourningglory.com, MOURN, mourningglory.com. And we'd love to meet you.
Yeah.
They'd love to meet you. They'd love to help you find hope and healing. Take care. Be well. Be here tomorrow. And we'll see you next time.